Bag, I want the bag. Work my way from a garden to a track. Flip it from a track to a plot full of acres. Do it for the farmers and the producers and the makers. What we even here for? Occasionally I ask it. I know it's more than struggling, anticipating the casket. Reap what we sow, trying to fill up my basket. Life's a plantation, I self-law and master. Over the plot I've been granted on this planet. Now it's slanted, cause the chosen been supplanted. But if you overstand it, it was spoken. Fractured, but we ain't broken. Even though some would rather play the role of token, we growing. Black through the essence of our presence. We carry the blood of gods, we carry the mind of peasants. Rich black gardens, future look more like Eden. Multiply seeds like the seed banks in Sweden. Rep my planners on plan according to season. B1 code, switching it up is treason. Black power, family what we eat. Either we get fed or we feed. B1AG.
What's growing on? What's growing on? What is growing on? Welcome back to B1AG Daily Bread Podcast. I'm John Henry Harris, and we also have Farmer Brown EMC. Here at B1AG, we focus on Black agriculture as it pertains to agricultural production, education, marketing, health, food, nutrition, and economics, all for the Black family and for the Black community. Welcome Black to the garden. I remember back when I was in 8th grade, I was in summer school down at Reebok Junior High School in Jacksonville, Florida. And we had something that we used to do every day at lunch. And it was food fight. And you would see a man, and all you would see is a fruit cup flying through the air. And as soon as it hit that table, it was on. We're in the middle of a real food fight right now. We really are. Now, before we get into this discussion, talking about this food fight, everyone, please like, share, and subscribe. Let's grow this content. Let's grow this talk. Let's go ahead and let's make this conversation bigger because, hey, there is a literal food fight going on right now. We have to fight for our right to feed ourselves. We have to fight for our right for healthy food. And we have to fight for our right to have a sustainable food system so we all have a place at this dinner table. Now, now we just recently reported in Brooklyn. This is right here in Brooklyn, New York, United States of America. You know, we reported about how an Army veteran was actually arrested. He was arrested for trying to buy some food at Panera Bread without showing a mandate pass. Arrested. Please go back and watch that episode. It's very important because this shows precedents here in this country on how they are going to go about enforcing these mandates on us. Precedence has been set. So today's story that we're gonna deep dive into this for real today, y'all, because this is not only just us ringing an alarm and trying to inform you about what's really going on with these mandates and how far they're willing to go to enforce them, but it is a call to action. This is a call to action. You know, this is a warning. We're trying to ring this alarm, but more so a call to action for things that we all can do for ourselves to make sure that we can eat. So today's story, food wars have started. Tips on growing indoors. It's the wintertime. You know, we're all getting prepared for the holidays, but, you know, it's really hard to grow outside now. But there are things that we can do to start growing indoors, as well as getting prepared for this upcoming spring to make sure that we can grow as hard as we can to grow as much food as we can for ourselves. Because these food wars have definitely started, and these food wars are real. And not just here in America, but around the globe. And we will touch on that. Farmer Brown, it's a food fight, bro.
First, I'd just like to say peace to the B1 family. The BS is hitting the fan, but here at B1AG, we're solution based. So we're looking at how can we make this manure fertilizer for not only growing healthy food, but growing healthy, thriving melanated communities. Uh, Let me preface this conversation by saying, family, let us not forget this 400-year issue that's still in the process of being addressed. There's a certain 400-year crisis that has come to an end, and so I hope the melanated family doesn't lose focus on that as we have these other moving pieces going on. This is a multi-dimensional chess game. Chess is all about war, and so when we talk about war, when we think about the elder Frederick Douglass, he talked about food as an act of war. And so we don't want to go too deep into this. If you can go to the next slide, I think the fact checkers are something else right now. So last year in 2020, go to the next slide. Last year in 2020, we were told, oh no, there's no plan for microchips to be used as verification of your medical decisions. This is from Reuters. This is from US Today. This is last year. A few days ago, this is on your news. We encourage the family to fact check us and prove us wrong. This isn't a thing about, hey, we're right, you're wrong. The proof is in the pudding, and the truth is being put out there. So as of the last few days, implanted microchips could be used to verify status. So we think about what's been going on with the NFL over the last few weeks. And so the NFL has been touted as the gold standard of how to go about implementing. And bro, if you want to touch on that real quick, but saying that to say this is where we've come, family. And so I know the sister Linus Crown had touched upon this a few weeks ago, talking about, hey, these are federal charges if you get caught with the fake ID card. And so we know there's a lot of places around the country right now. Here in a few slides, we're going to show you actually where they are, where these protocols are being implemented. And so what we want to do here today, like I said, we're going to touch on some of the BS going on. But like I said, we have solutions. There's always a choice. Some choices are harder than others, but I feel like our ancestors have endowed us with genes that have made us resilient in any type of climate.
Now, the NFL has been touted as being the gold standard for, implementing this medication, right? Now, coming into the season, they had 94% of their players medicated. Almost 100% of their staff medicated. Now, when this Omicron hit the league at the end of week 14, they had to suspend and postpone 3 games. Now, through the first 3 months of the season, in six testing periods, September 5th through November 27th, 110 players and 187 staff members tested positive. Since December 13th, approximately 200 players have tested positive, and as of Monday, over 150 were on the health and safety protocols list. So in 1 week, they've had just as many people in the safety and health protocol as they have in the first 3 months. And these are people that have been fully medicated. Fully medicated. Why do you bring this up, John Henry? This stuff that they're shooting in their arms is not going to save you. It's not keeping you from getting sick.
That's efficacy for you.
The more that people get medicated, the more people get sick. And now they're using this, these same mandates. If you don't, no jab, no food. No jab, no food. These food wars is real.
If you can go to the next slide. And so we think about Antonio Brown. That was the big topic last few weeks. And so he is a wide receiver. I think the Buccaneers, one of the best wide receivers in the league. And he got caught with the fake card, him and a couple other players. And so you got to know, you think about Aaron Rodgers, some of the other players, like, hey, all of these people have these fake cards. What can we do about it? And we know these people, it's a concept of problem, reaction, solution. Over the last year, the word has been touted, oh, this is an honor system. But, somebody's printing these cards. We've seen stories with nurses. We've seen stories with certain pharmacies getting caught handing out fake IDs, right? And so when we think about the nefariousness of it all, and so, okay, hey, we want to keep everybody safe. That guy that some people went and voted into the office, he was talking last week, and it sounded like an infomercial for the jab. It didn't sound like, hey, I want to keep y'all healthy. It sounded like I'm selling a product that your government happens to have some financial interest in. But let me not digress. And so what this turned into is what you see on this image right here. Everywhere where you see these red tags, this is where these are now being implemented, where you now have to have proof to come into certain restaurants, stores, and other indoor venues. So everywhere, I hope the melanated family feel free to rewind. So everywhere where you see these red dots, obviously it's not everywhere, but I think we can read the writing on the wall. And so, hey, these NFL players are coming with these fake documents. And so that goes back to the first slide of, so the only way to really verify this is let me put it inside of you. That way we'll know it's real. And then, we know Amazon has been testing over the last 2 years scanners to purchase your food. I think the melanated family into the history, the Bible, different texts have told us that a time will come where you can't buy, sell, or trade unless you're willing to acknowledge something other than the Most High as your means of doing it. But here at B1AG, we understand the Most High has given us all that we need. If you go to the next slide. This is in New Brunswick, Canada. No jab, no food. Grocery stores can now ban unveed shoppers. So, once again, if you Google this, the fact checkers will say, oh, this isn't true. They haven't started this. But legalese is a thing. So legally now they can keep people from these stores. It hasn't been implemented yet. But like we showed you in the first slide, okay, last year, nobody's going to use something implantable to verify your medical decisions. And then literally a year later, now we are. And if you know anything about research doesn't happen in 1 year. It happens over time. And so, once again, strike up a point for the conspiracy theorists. But in all seriousness, okay, we see right now the conversation is about not being able to go into certain restaurants and indoor venues. And they're saying 5 and up. I need you to have this verification if you're 5 and up that you've done this, that you've had this gene therapy. And so we see in Canada, which has been a lot more stern with their restrictions and protocols, law has now been passed that we can restrict you from going into a grocery store. If you go to the next slide. Think about Chicago. A few weeks ago, it was just New York. It was being rolled out in New York. De Blasio said you can't go into restaurants. And we just saw a few weeks later, we see a guy going in Panera getting arrested for it. And so now in Chi-Town, you think about all of the other issues going on in Chicago that need to be addressed. But we'll digress from that and we'll focus on, no, you have to have this to come in and eat. And what I know about violence, and there's been research to be shown, when people are hungry, people are going to be more prone to violence. When you've restricted, whether you're talking about human beings or animal, when you've restricted somebody's source of food, you're going to get a whole different level of contention. When you think about Bobby Rush, who's actually out of Illinois, he's one of the proponents of the 6666 legislation that was proposed last year. And this is basically giving law enforcement rights to come into your home and make sure you've been jabbed. I forgot to put that slide up, but this is something I hope the melanated family is paying attention to. This was rolled out over the last few days. Mayor Lightfoot, like I said, with all of the other things going on. Once again, we're not going to dwell on these issues. I hope the melanated family lets this image set in just for a second. Just as a reminder of where we've come to. Here at B1AG, we're not into conspiracy theory. We're not into fear porn. We're here for solutions. The other day, Dr. Boyce, he was in his book club talking about Claude Anderson and this concept of Black leadership. And he said some very wise words. The best melanated Black leaders we have are within each of these melanated homes. There's no such thing as centralized Black leadership. That leadership starts in our homes. Here at B1AG, our contention is learning how to grow our own food is a timeless display of leadership that doesn't require checking in. You don't have to fill out a grant. You don't have to divulge all of your life experience. You don't have, there's no mandate against being able to grow your own food. So here at B1AG, as we come into this cold season, these are some of the things we want to get into. What can we do as we go into this cold season? So if you can take the banner off briefly. And so we know indoors, obviously, food grows a lot better outdoors. That's how nature designed it. That's how the Most High designed it. But as we're thinking about getting ready for spring 2022 and growing harder than ever, here's some veggies that you can grow indoors. So beets, carrots, scallions, cilantro for people that's into mushrooms, arugula, tomatoes, avocados, lettuce, and lemons. What you see to the left is an infographic of a basic window garden. I will say, here at B1AG, we're not here to sell wolf tickets. We're not. We don't want you to think that, I can grow my whole year's worth of produce inside of my home. That's technically not feasible. But as a starting point, as a means of supplementing at least some of your smaller vegetables or your greens, this is a great way to get started. What we understand is, as my grandfather would say, keep it simple, stupid. We know plants need light. Absolutely. And we're going to get to that. If you can go to the next slide. So what you have right here, these are some examples. And so just like people, plants are very specific and they do optimally in certain regions. And so you do have a concept of cool season crops. This will be your carrots, beets, parsnips, turnips, rutabagas, radish, leeks, garlic, onion, cauliflower, spinach, lettuce, different salad mixes, collard greens, kale, broccoli, cabbage, parsley. And then you have your warm season crops. This would be things such as your beans, your celery, your corn, your cucumbers, squash, different melons, your cantaloupe, eggplants, tomatoes, peppers, sweet potatoes. And so, as you're planning your growing operation out for 2022, keep all of these things in mind. Here at B1AG, we want to be very specific. Agriculture or gardening isn't a game of what if or maybe. It has to be very concise. We've been told over this last year to follow the science. So here at B1AG, we want to give you the science of how to grow optimal, how to grow your own healthy Black food. If you go to the next slide. And so the sister brought up heirloom seeds. And so right now, I'll be very honest. I'm not into the holiday season. I don't see this as a holiday season. I see this as the end of the Gregorian calendar year. Deca meaning 10, but this is somehow the 12th month. So once again, as to not get confused, hey, this is the end of the season. This is time for planning. This is, as we're in our cubby holes, as we're in our huts, because it's getting a little colder outside, I'm now planning for what I'm going to do for the next year. So one of the great things we can do if we are into gifting and things of that nature is storing up on seeds. Now, there is a difference in seeds. And if you want to go through this real quick, bro.
Now, you do have the hybrid seeds, but we really want the heirloom seeds. These are the real seeds. Hybrid seeds, they have been genetically modified. Some of them, they've been modified so they can withstand different temperatures or different pests. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But we want the original. We want the real thing. Ain't nothing like the real thing, baby. We want that heirloom. And that's what we need to shoot for, is the heirloom seeds. And these are some of the places that you can look online and find your heirloom seeds. Eden Brothers, Pine Tree Garden Seeds, Fedco Garden Seeds, Seed Treasure, Southern Exposure Seed Exchange, Stover Seeds Company, high mowing organic seeds. If we have to rewatch this program and pause and write these places down, these businesses down, do that. Like I said, this is a call to action. These are things that we need to do for ourselves to make sure that we all can eat, because we all have to eat. And we want to eat something that's real, organic, the way that the Most High made it, and that's through heirloom seeds. And these are some of the best heirloom seed companies that you can that we still have access to.
One of the questions we get a lot, hey, I live in an apartment. I don't really live, in an area where there's a lot of land. So once again, when we look at different forms of currency, and this is when cooperative economics comes into play. Okay, I might not be the planner, but I might be somewhere like New York City or somewhere where I happen to have access to more capital. So I'm going to use my capital to store up on seeds, because there's no food if you have no seeds. So we're going to get a network of us together, and we're all going to have different varieties of these seeds. While they are still available online, if you got plugs with certain local producers, specifically melanated producers, this is a thing. We talk about a stock market, but there's nothing like having a storage house full of seeds. And we will go into storage a little bit later in this presentation. But plants that grow best in the winter. Like I said, it's feasible to grow, a few different fruits and vegetables indoors, but with any system that's not necessarily natural, it will cost. It will cost extra money because you do need lighting. Optimally, plants need 8 to 13 hours of sunlight to grow optimally outdoors. And so as you're planning your indoor operation, you want to keep that in mind. For what you don't have getting directly from the sun, you're going to have artificial light. When you're gardening indoors, you're not going to use garden soil from outdoors. You use potting mix or potting soil. So once again, these are inputs that, it is a good investment. There are ways to create your own potting mix, but like I said, I don't know too many stores right now that don't have it. Your hardware stores, some Walmart. They also do have some organic brands. But some of the best plants to grow in the winter would be your sprouts. This would be like your different bean sprouts, arugula sprouts, microgreens. And so microgreens grow real well. This is a relatively short harvest time. And then salads. You can grow a lot of salad greens under artificial light. Once again, you can have battery operated lights. Say you're in a situation where, okay, we're getting threatened with these power outages. Store up on batteries. Don't just have batteries to charge up the phones and play video games, but also have batteries for some indoor lights. What do you say? If you stay prepared, you don't have to get prepared. Go to the next slide.
And also keep in mind that, okay, I know some of our viewers, they may not think highly of salads. A salad will keep you alive. If you have a choice between rummaging through the garbage, trying to find some food, or growing a salad, eating microgreens, trust me, those microgreens will do you well. They'll do you much more justice.
And so when we think about indoor, and so we know general rule of thumb, the average individual eats 200 square feet worth of produce during the course of a year. So once again, if I'm indoors, not necessarily outside, or even if I do have an outside plot, but I don't have like acres on top of acres, this is where you can incorporate vertical gardening. So if you see to the far left, that's a shoe rack. And so once again, we know the seeds are going to need some sort of soil matrix to put the seeds in, because this is how the seeds get their nutrients, through the soil. It needs something to contain them. And so when we talk about this concept of container garden, basically you need a matrix. Obviously, I'm not going to grow watermelons out of a shoe rack, because a watermelon is going to need significantly more soil. When we talk about your microgreens, your sprouts, different leafy greens, a shoe rack is something that can be used indoors. Allocate a corner within your house, your apartment, your duplex. Also in the middle, you see something. My kids are big on Paw Patrol right now, and I think his name is Rocky. Don't lose it, reuse it. And so something as simple as these plastic bottles can be reused as a soil matrix. Once again, you're not going to grow tomatoes or peppers out of these, but these are good for your greens, leafy greens. And then to the far right, set up so you can set up racks and shelves within your house. Once again, there are plants that you can find. There are these systems that you can find online that already have lights set up. But I tend to think as melanated people, we're innovative. Once we get an idea of what the end goal is, then we can better innovate based on what resources are available to us, based on the space. And so this is vertical gardening, growing upwards versus horizontally. You can go to the next. What's
And a
that?
lot of these indoor growing systems that they have on, they sell for like $1,200, $2,500. You can get you a $10 shoe rack and achieve the same thing. 25. You know, you can take things that you already have around your home and repurpose them to achieve the same results. Let's do that. Let's do that.
So one thing you keep in mind, and so this is more so this can be applied indoors when you think about direction. And so for the most part, your plants should be facing north. To get optimal sunlight, you want them facing north, whether you're whether you're indoors or whether you're planting your 2022 garden space. And so as you line up your rows, yes, egg cartons, anything that can hold your soil. So once again, that's that melanated mind. That's that black magic. We know what we want to do. Now, what do we have around us to make it do what it do? And so as you're thinking about space, and so just like people, you don't want, it's not good to be crammed up. And so your plants are the same way for optimal growth, to where your roots aren't just choking each other out, to where your leaves aren't shading out the ones around it. You want to make sure that there's space, and you want it north facing. If you go to the next slide. And right here, real briefly, here's a spatial diagram. So once again, every plant you have is going to have its own spatial requirement. For example, watermelons typically grow horizontally. You're going to have your vines that grow horizontally, and so you're going to want to give them space to do such. Versus your onions, you can grow a lot of them in a smaller space, and we actually have a spatial chart here in the next few slides. But like I said, as you look at this diagram, when you're planning your garden out, you want to be very specific to get optimal growth. There is this concept that, okay, yeah, I want to grow food. I'll just throw these seeds outdoor and then they'll start growing. It doesn't work that way. When you think about the outdoors, okay, so you see acorns or tree, different seeds in a natural setting will grow with less input because they're in a natural setting. When you're gardening, you're wanting to bring something in that's not necessarily growing native to where you're at. And so that would require spatial design. What do they say? God operates within us. And so this is our opportunity to play God. And I don't want to say play God, but you understand what I'm saying. Okay, how do we create this Eden? How do we create this space where all of these living things that we call plants that we want to consume have the best life possible? I know that they're all competing for light. They want that light, that illumination, and they all want water. They want that nutrition. And so I want to make sure that all of my plants' roots have access to equal nutrition and have access to the sun. So once again, what is the best direction? And that would be north facing. You can go to the next slide. So once again, here's another diagram. And like Bruh said, feel free to rewind. Hit us up at B1AG hiphop@gmail.com if you would like this slideshow. We'll send it to you. But something like tomatoes, for example, we saw this challenge over the summer, this crate challenge. And so if you can picture, every single one of those crates represent a square foot of growing space. So every single one of those crates could have been a good tomato plant, a good pepper plant. You could have grown 9 different onions. You could have grown 4 heads of lettuce. You could have grown 6 carrots, 16 leafy lettuces. You could have grown 2 cucumbers. And this, I'm not going to go through all of these, but if you get an idea. And so once again, we want you to have a spatial understanding. It doesn't have to be so scientific that everything's to the dot, but if you have a spatial understanding of what can grow, General rule of thumb, I would base everything in a square foot as far as planning out your garden. Like I said, you can do some horizontally, but you can also think vertically. There's also pallet gardens, and I think we have some examples of those as we go through the slide. But once again, you want to be very conscientious about space. Because once the thing with kids, once you've gotten your kids started and then come 5 years old, 10 years old, oh, I forgot that. I probably didn't want to teach them this. I didn't want to show them that. It's too late. Once the seed has been planted, the growth process has started. And so the beauty about gardening, the beauty about learning how to grow your own food is, each year this becomes your personal research project where the goal at B1AG is for you to get better and better each year. And it starts with small spaces. This will be the same advice I give professionally to the farmers that I work with. Hey, before doing this large scale operation, start small, see what works, see what's needed, see what your weak points are, and work on those before you invest in, planting on these larger spaces. If you go to the next slide. So right now, as we talk about this food war, water is a big part of food, right? And so, as depending on where you're at, water catchment systems. And so, right here, the image you see, these are 55-gallon barrels. So, this is a very innovative way of storing water. We met a sister from out Las Vegas, and she was telling us this was a few months ago that they had restrictions on how much water they could use. And this is when it was summertime. So once again, the wise thing to do is learn from lessons of the past. We see that we're dealing with a system that will cut certain resources off, but we know the Most High makes it rain. Depending on where you're at, it rains frequently. And so are we catching this water? It would be good, when we're thinking about prepping, is have water tablets. These are the tablets you can put in water and make it potable water. But then also you want to store water to be able to water your operation. This can also be used in an irrigation system. But once again, just thinking about how to store water. Let gravity work for you. You want the water to push down. What if you're in a situation where electricity goes off? And so everything you're doing, you want to make sure that it's conducive to doing the job of what you want it to do. You need the water to water your plants. For this water to work, even in a situation where electricity is not working, or you're wanting to cut down on your electricity bill from having a pump, you keep everything vertical. You keep everything where gravity is pushing it downwards. And like I said, this is something that can be done over the winter. As your palms is itching, wanting to get out there in the spring and start growing, go on and start storing some of your water. You can attach some of these water catchment systems pretty much anywhere where you got a gutter. Go to the next slide. So, once again, we're wanting to recreate Eden wherever we're at. We're wanting to create optimal gardens. When we think about some of the nefariousness going on as far as the outdoors, people talk about chemtrails. Everything isn't necessarily nefarious, more so than just being aware that the concept of a high tunnel or a low tunnel is being able to create your own environment for the plants that you're planting. As we see, some of these challenges that we're running into in fall and in summer of 2021, how can we put our minds on preparing for fall and winter 2022 and beyond? And so we want to create these indoor growing apparatuses. And like I said, some of these you can get these online for $3,000. Some of these a couple of hundred. For about $50 to $60, you could get the material and make some on your own. But the concept is you want an adjustable climate where you can roll these sides up. If it's hot outdoors, you want to bring some heat in, or if it's cold outdoors, you want to keep the cold out. But the concept is controlling the environment. And with these, you can grow all year round. Like I said, are you going to be able to grow your whole year's supply worth of food? I doubt it. But will this definitely supplement? If you're working in a cooperative people that have multiple yards spread out over your community or neighborhood, can this be a definite viable food source? Absolutely. But when we talk about this concept of codification, the code is, hey, y'all, we need to have more control over our food system. What are the mechanisms to do it? And so, like I said, your indoor, your high tunnels, your low tunnels, or even greenhouses, If you have the financial means to create greenhouses, these would be great ways to reuse or repurpose some of these structures that are laying dormant or decaying in some of our communities. Go to the next slide. Containers. Once again, okay, hey man, I love what y'all are talking about, but where I'm at, we don't have much soil, or we're crammed on top of each other. Well, once again, this comes with understanding spatial dynamics. So if you can see to the bottom left, that's a balcony. I want to say that's in New Jersey or New York. This is a balcony where they literally have their containers, their rectangular pots aligned perfectly to where you can put in your tomatoes, and these are good for your tomatoes, peppers, things of that nature. Up top, you see barrel garden. With the barrel garden, the one you see to the top right, you can get up to 72 different plants out of a 55-gallon barrel. Once again, you want to line this barrel with landscape fabric. You can actually, I don't know if you can see it, there's actually a large PVC pipe in the middle. You would drill holes in it, and what you do, you put compost in the middle, and you can put worms in it. What those worms will do, they'll go through that compost, they'll crawl out in the holes, and they'll fertilize your soil. They'll keep the potting mix loose. So once again, it's the concept is understanding the system. BC to the bottom. This is a young lady in one of our programs, Fresh Up Urban Garden Workshop, using something like 5-gallon or 2-gallon buckets. And you want to get the food grade. There is a difference. You don't want any sort of chemicals bleeding off into your plants. But once again, this is why you would line it with some sort of fabric. But within each of those holes, you can actually cut slots and insert your plants, whether you're talking about your herbs or your leafy greens. And then up top, you obviously see some other container gardens, and these will be your 5-gallon barrel bucket. Temperature. And so one of the things here at B1AG, we see our government didn't always have our best interest at heart, but there are some very useful resources when we talk about this concept of your cooperative extension office. Everywhere where you live at, whether you're talking about New York City, you would go to Cornell University, cooperative extension agriculture. Here in the state of Kentucky, so I work for a land grant institution, and I work in cooperative extension. If you're in Florida at one of your HBCUs, if you're in Texas, if you're in California, you have a cooperative extension office wherever you are. And the information you get from your cooperative extension office is you want to know the specific plants that can be grown within your planting zone. It's called a plant hardiness zone. General rule of thumb, you don't want to put anything in the ground before your last frost. You want to make sure that there's no more frost going into the year. And so depending on where you're at, some places, and the warmer the climate you are, the earlier you can put your seeds in the ground. Just because you can't put them in the ground doesn't mean you can't start them indoors. But once again, agriculture and gardening is very time sensitive. And so once again, like I said, what will work for me in Kentucky may not work the same way for, say, somebody in Arizona. So this is some of the information that is out there, is readily available, and we do have some links as we get to this podcast. But definitely contact your cooperative extension office so you can get your plant hardiness zone information and get a formidable list of what grows best where I'm at. Temperature makes all the difference in the world. We're at a time and space where as we're coming together as collective storing these seeds, we can't waste nothing. We don't want to shoot no blanks. When we put this in the soil, we want to see something grow. And so we want to be very codified and very specific, and it breaks down the temperature. If we go to the next slide. And so this is real quick. Obviously, like I said, your plants need sun exposure, sun or light. We're not going to stay on this one too long, but once again, feel free to rewind or reach out to us at b1aghiphop@gmail.com. So some plants will need more light than others. You want to keep all of this in mind as you're planning your operation. Go to the next slide. Once again, here's a list. We're not going to go to the next one. So the sister, she was saying she's using egg crates. What does Rocky say? Don't lose it, reuse it. And so these are different seeding methods. So once again, we understand the concept of, okay, maybe I'm somewhere where I don't want to just put the seeds directly in the ground because it's still frosting, or I got some squirrels, or I got something that comes by and likes to dig my seeds up. So once again, there's various ways that you can start your seeds indoors. Something like you see up to the top left-hand corner are peat moss pods. With these are little tablets. You can order these in bulk. I typically order them by the thousand. It's relatively cheap. You pour a little bit of water, they expand. You put your seed in them. They have trays that come with these, or you can create your own tray. But once again, you can start your seeds, and I wouldn't leave them in there longer than 2 weeks. So once again, you will map this out. Okay, 2 weeks before I know my last frost, this is when I'm gonna go on and put my seeds. Just using these pods, for example, in my pods. Also, you see the biodegradable cups. You can start your seeds with these. Put potting mix, and you can actually put these cups directly into the ground. Or even if you're doing a container, you can actually put these directly into wherever you're growing, and it degrades into the soil. And so once again, you're making use of everything. Up to the top, you also see a seeding tray. These are good for indoors. Like I said, you can use egg crates, like the sister said. And to the bottom, just to get an idea of what seed germination looks like. Once again, you see that root sprouting. And so roots are smart. You know, they go on reconnaissance missions. They make sure that there's space for them to grow. And this is what's going on in the seed germination process. And this is one of those metaphorical learning lessons. You know, when we talk about this grow your own food, it's so much deeper than just growing food. There's so many other lessons to be learned from these plants. As far as, okay, I know I want to grow, I know I want to be optimal, I want to be fruitful and multiply. And so before I engage on this mission, let me see what the ground I'm working with. Let me prepare before I put my dicotyledon or my two leaves up to absorb. Okay, now where's the sun coming from? Wherever the sun's coming from, that's the direction I'm gonna grow. And so once again, everything operates in steps. And so there's so many lessons to be learned from these growing operations. If you can go to the next slide. Once again, so indoors, it does cost a little bit. If you're wanting to grow hard indoors, it can be done. But the harder you grow indoors, the more you're going to invest. And so I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, don't invest, because I do personally think it's a great investment to have an indoor growing operation. But for lighting will cost. The more lighting you have, the more plants you can grow indoors. Uh, like I said, if you're fortunate to have space, possibly a room, possibly a corner in a room, you can literally set up your own growing operation indoors. Once again, when we see some of the mandates going down, some of the things that are affecting these kids, these are great at-home laboratories. That what do they say? Knock out multiple birds with one stone. And so as we're earning as we're learning. So as we're learning how to grow food, I'm also teaching offspring. I'm teaching kids, nieces and nephews how to grow, how they can take these seeds that they're learning as they're young and apply it to an ever-changing world where we see that food is being used as a weapon of war. But how great of a weapon is it when you have in your mind? Nobody can erase your mind. And I mean, I know Elon Musk is working on these little chips, but in all seriousness, when you have this general understanding of how to grow your food, that is valuable. You know, however you want to transfer that currency. If you go to the next slide. So once again, we got the brother Leroy Shabazz, which we're going to be having on again real soon, just talking about preparedness. And so there is a difference between emergency preparedness and emergency response. We're not going to go too deep into detail because our area is food security, right? But food security is all a part of being prepared and then responding. Here in Kentucky, just a few weeks ago, there was a tornado 200 miles long. There's a lot of people's lives that were suddenly uprooted. I'm not going to sit here and say, well, hey, if they were growing their own gardens, they would have been straight. That's not what I'm saying. Become spring 2022, I guarantee you more people, because they understand the uncertainty of many things, are going to really start looking at, now, what are things that I can do where I'm at to ensure, these freak acts of nature, whether you want to call it nature, ancestral vengeance, or however you want to word it. It might be hard, right? But you want to be prepared in any sort of weather. Go to the next slide. And last but not least, if you wanted to go over this, bro, when we talk about this cooperative economics, well, I don't have a lot of money. Well, I don't have a lot of land. What are different forms of capital? As we hear about Bitcoin and stocks and all of that.
Hey, you have social capital. Some of us are very popular. We're outgoing, extroverts. That is very valuable. You can help onboard other people into the idea of, hey, let's grow our own food. Let's do this together. Let's make sure that we have enough to eat, and we also have a variety of foods that we can trade and share amongst each other. You have material capital. Some people, they have a lot of things. They might have a lot of tools. They might have a lot of just things that you would be able to repurpose and use for growing, especially those tools. Some people are, might have landscaping, mowers and weed eaters, and some people may just have like, shovels and machetes and rakes and things like that. But it's an opportunity for those with those tools to be able to, help other people grow. You have financial capital. Some people have a lot of money. Some people are, they're just very good with money, have a lot of money. While it's able to spend, let's make sure that we spend this money appropriately, especially on things that will help us to grow food. Let's buy these seeds while we can still buy them. Let's load up on these seeds and store them while we can still get it. Living capital, that's experience. Some of us, just let's share our experiences that we've got from life. Intellectual capital. Some of us are very creative people. Let's go ahead and get these ideas down and disperse these ideas amongst our family and friends. Hey, this is something that we can do together, and this is the way we can do it. Experiential. Again, that's action. It's a call to action. Look, I started with one plan. I see how this works. Let's go ahead and let's get a whole row. Let's get 2 rows. Let's do 2 or 3 raised bed gardens. Let's expand. Spiritual capital. Some of us are tied in, spiritually more so than others, and are able to download information that others may not be able to reach. We need to be able to share that. We also need to stay plugged in with that spirituality, because that's going to help guide us through these murky times, these murky waters. And there's times where I just don't understand, or I just can't see what's going on. But that voice, that inner voice, will help guide us through those times. And we've got to stay plugged in. Cultural capital. Look, y'all, we got to lean on all this. Our ancestors, they've been through this before. Ain't nothing new under this sun. Even though they're trying to do microchips and all of that, look, they talk about these in ancient texts. They said that this was coming. So we need to look and lean on our culture, things that have worked for our ancestors in the past. About the 3 sisters as far as growing, with beans, corn, and squash. We need to rely on things that help our ancestors thrive. Not just survive, but help them thrive through the times that they were in. They will also lend a hand in us surviving through the times that we are facing now. Now, this whole presentation that we share with you today, this is just a small slice of what we go through with healthyblackfood.com. This is just a small example of the live interaction that we have with healthyblackfood.com. It's a digital course, but we do meet once a month. Once a month we meet to give that live interaction, answer your questions, and also share more relevant information. We go more in depth. So we make sure that we want to make sure that you can really, really produce and create your own personal Eden, your own backyard garden, your own food supply. And we give you suggestions on how you can connect with, once you get your food supply going, how to connect with other people's food supply. And therefore, 1+1 = 3. That's that synergy. Because if you connect with someone else who's producing, together, y'all will produce more food than you will be able to produce each individually. So, keeping this together, this family, this community mind state, this growth mind state, through healthyblackfood.com, hopefully we can create this network of growers so we can all link with each other to make sure that, hey, we all, not only we just surviving and getting by, just getting enough caloric intake to make it through the day. No, we all eating good, and we have a variety of food, and we eating like we see on the Food Network. And we're growing it all ourselves.
Can you go back to those first 3 slides as we tie this conversation together? If you go back to those first 3 slides, family, once again, I wear these bright glasses as my affirmation of optimism. I know the Most High is on our side. He'll never put anything on us that we can't bear. And if like I know, this 400 years is up, family. The 400 years is up. Now, there was spoken of this time in the wilderness. And during that time in the wilderness, people still had to eat. What did he say? Let the wheat and the tare grow together, and I'll do the separating. And so part of that, now, how many of these cats are going to feed each other? When we think about codified ways, to engage one another, feeding. I don't need to proselytize you. I don't need to convert you to anything, because I know your stomach already wants you to eat. I know those that you love and care about have to eat. And so to the degree that we can just care to feed one another, the writing is on the wall, family. I mean, whether you're somebody that's read the Bible or not, I came up in the church, and I went through the wilderness, right? I understand that, hey, some of this is true, whether you want to get spiritual or religious or not. And we find ourselves in 2021 where somebody has decided, okay, well, since y'all don't want to get this, I'm going to restrict you from eating. Oh, y'all think y'all slick. Y'all going to get some fake passes. For one, I'm going to criminalize you, as if it isn't enough things that are criminalizing people. But then if you want to verify that you're worthy to come into my establishments, which been making y'all's cholesterol go up anyway, which, okay, because of inflation, y'all going to be paying more for this food I'm selling you anyway. Y'all going to have to get this in your hand. It might work, it might not. We talk about this concept of a power grid going down. So how effective would me having this device in my hand be in a situation where a power grid goes down? But I'll tell you something that will always throughout time work in your hand, and that's a shovel. And that's a seed. And when you plant those seeds and when you nurture those seeds, literally or metaphorically speaking, they grow. Like the brother Thaxton said, it was already written, we have the victory. We got to go up and get the medal. Don't let these people distract us from the victory. I hear a lot of fear porn. Like I said, the other day when that guy was speaking, it sounded like an infomercial. I'm reminding you to be scared. I'm reminding you to be worried. Even though in South Africa, they said the big O is almost already gone, right? And this is what it came out on Thanksgiving. It's almost gone, but here in the West, we're employing a whole new set of mandates because of this. Family, let us not be distracted from the opportunity we have in front of us. Growing food isn't the end all be all, but I guarantee you, whatever you believe in will bless your mission to the degree that you're willing to not only feed yourself, but see what you can do to feed the family. Every other group around the world, I promise you, that's what they're thinking about. They're not sitting down thinking about ways to feed the melanated people. They're not worried about those melanated people, those foundational black people in America. Hey, this system is going down, and what does Sigmund Freud say? First thing is self-preservation. So is this black God body that we represent? No, actually, seeds can be stored in cooler weather. That's a good question, Sister Clark. And I wish we would have kept that slide on there. So this is another thing to keep in mind as we go through these winter months. So obviously you don't want them exposed to the water where it freeze them, but cold weather actually keeps them dormant. There's some seeds that'll last 200 years. Actually, I was reading a research paper a couple of days ago. There was some seeds that were like 200 years old that just now started growing. Right. They bleed too. David killed the Goliath with a pebble. We're going to kill this giant with a seed.
Hey, y'all, we actually have the power in our hands to create our own personal Eden. Think about that. The Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve, as the story goes, they had everything that they needed to eat to sustain themselves at their fingertips. And he gave us the exact same power. All we got to do is put in the work. Grab those shovels, gather those seeds, plant them, give the plants what they need, reap the harvest. Such a wonderful thing. Don't you agree? So wonderful. Wouldn't you agree? Your own personal Eden. That's what we're here for, here at B1AG. We want everyone to eat. We all have to eat. Again, the UN, they've said this and they recognize this. However, the actions of countries around the world seem to be contrary. But food is a fundamental human right. They may forget that, but we're not going to forget that. We refuse to forget that. We all have to eat. And here at B1AG, we believe in pushing that black algorithm to fight against the algorithm. You know, they want us to pass our time with ratchet information. We're going to pass our time with righteous information that's going to help us grow into the next generation. And I hope that y'all ride with us. Matter of fact, I pray you ride with us. We got plenty of room.
Pushing the black algorithm. Ancestors, they mastered the systems. We raising young bosses, no victims. Planting that knowledge curriculum. Blessing the roots with the nutrients. The darker the berry, like Nubian. Dropping receipts like I'm Julian. The streets with that food like Peruvian. Trapping the merchant, the fruits and the veggies. CSA boxes, my package is heavy. Ship across town in the bed of my Chevy. Printing them up, growing hard for that baby. If you stay ready, you ain't gotta scramble. Bet on black farmers and growers, no gamble. Reclaiming our bankers, the gamers in shambles. Blessed with that melanin, carry the miracle. Mothers and fathers of civilization. Black to the garden with food cultivation. Building back better through black innovation. B1 community growing the nation. Genetically designed to be the dopest. Stoking that growth mindset. Codified, now we focus. Farming on track on track. Feed the fam, break bread with them. Pushing that B1 algorithm. Now watch me get them, watch me get them. Pushing that B1 algorithm. Rhythm on. Feed the fam, break bread with them. Pushing that B1 algorithm. Now watch me get them, watch me get them. Pushing that B1 algorithm.
Now, leaning on this cultural currency that we have, let us not forget. I put this up earlier, I'm gonna put it up again. It wasn't that long ago, that our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents had to deal with this. Those water fountains, being denied access to these restaurants. It's not much different now. It's not much difference at all. Same play, different age. And I'm gonna put this up too. July 8th, 1942. There was another segment of society that was denied access to public establishments. July 8th, 1942. They were denied access to restaurants, cafes, theaters, cinemas, concerts, museums, sporting events. They had to show their papers too.
Some of the people making these decisions today, their grandparents were actually brought over and given other names. Somebody said, "Hey, that's very interesting what y'all have going on over there. How can we implement this over in the West?"
So let us not forget. Let us not forget. History repeats itself. Show us your papers. They don't even want us to show papers now. They want to scan your hand. Because papers can be altered. This is not Photoshop. This is now. This is where we are now. This is where we are. So let's use our common sense. My grandfather used to call it mother's wit. Because, a mother, it's like when a woman becomes a mother, it's like another door of knowledge is opened up, because she's not necessarily only thinking about herself. She's thinking about the protection and the survival of her children, of her offspring. You get very creative. Farmer Brown, I'm pretty sure since you've had your twins, even they call it mother's wit, I'm pretty sure your father's wit has been off the meat rack.
Oh yeah.
To protect your kids and ensure their future.
You would think I was an athlete. My reflexes have never been better, and my hearing has never been sharper.
You turn into an X-Man, y'all. He's turned into an X-Man. But let's tap into
mothers
that.
And fathers of civilization, as above, so below. That same dynamic exists. These people are destroying our planet, y'all. We gonna let them destroy Eden? Because I want to thrive. I want something to pass down to my great melanated grandkids. And it starts with a seed.
A simple seed. Starts with the seed, y'all. And at the end of the day, Farmer Brown, if the people really, really want to know something, what do they need to do, bro?
If you really want to know something, it's a food fight!
Food fight! Let's grow. They ain't playing with us, y'all. We joke around and, to make light, but this is a real situation. Let's get to growing. Let's grow harder. They want us to all shoot jump shots and run the football and be athletes. It's time to grab our rakes and our shovels and our seeds and become athletes. Let's become athletes. Let's go into lane. During these times, let's be blessed to be around our family. Let's pay homage and respect to our family and ancestors that have passed on. Let's proceed with love. And we'll see you next time here at B1AG Daily Bread Podcast. Peace.